For 6 straight weeks, one side kept calling and the other side didn't pick up. No deal updates, no counteroffers, just silence. And now that silence has finally been broken, but instead of relief, it may have triggered the most dangerous phase yet in the fight over the future of the WNBA. According to multiple reports and negotiation leaks, league owners have officially delivered a new collective bargaining proposal to the Players Association. On the surface, it looks massive. Bigger salaries, major lifestyle upgrades, long-demanded player protections. The kind of package that, if accepted, could reshape how the league operates for the next decade. But here's the twist. Even with all of that on the table, the deal is still not done. And insiders say one unresolved financial formula could still put the entire upcoming season at risk. The headline number grabbing everyone's attention is the reported maximum salary jump. Analysts discussing the proposal say top-end pay could rise dramatically under the new structure, potentially crossing the $1 million mark through incentive and revenue share mechanisms. That's a staggering leap compared to previous caps, and it's why fans online are calling this a turning point moment. But those same reports also stress that the biggest money depends on how revenue sharing is calculated, and that's exactly where negotiations are stuck. It's not just about paychecks either. The proposal reportedly includes expanded travel standards, more consistent charter flight access, upgraded medical and maternity protections, and broader quality of life improvements players have been requesting for years. On paper, it reads like progress. In negotiation reality, it reads like leverage. Right now, this isn't just a contract discussion, it's a high-stakes chess match between ownership economics and player guarantees. Reports suggest both sides believe they're offering a fair model. Both sides also believe the other is asking for too much. And with expansion plans, free agency movement, and season scheduling all waiting on this signature, the clock is no longer background detail, it's the main pressure point. So the real question is whether an offer exists. It does. The real question is whether this offer is enough to prevent a standoff that could delay or disrupt the season entirely. And once you understand what caused the 6-week silence in the first place, the tension makes a lot more sense. For weeks, the most striking part of this negotiation was what was said. It was what wasn't. Multiple outlets reported that after early bargaining sessions, communication between league ownership and the Players Association slowed to a crawl. From the union side, there were signals of frustration. From the ownership side, near total quiet. No public counter, no visible urgency. Just a long pause that made fans and players start asking the same question: is this deal stuck? That silence wasn't harmless, it was strategic. In high-level sports labor negotiations, going quiet can be a pressure tactic. Analysts who follow league CBAs say extended silence often serves two purposes: slow the momentum of the other side's public campaign and buy time to build a comprehensive counterproposal instead of negotiating piece by piece. In other words, instead of replying to every demand, disappear, then return with a full package. And that's exactly what reportedly happened here. According to negotiation coverage, owners didn't respond with small tweaks. They came back with a wide-ranging framework: salary structure changes, benefit expansions, travel standards, and revenue share mechanics all bundled together. Big swing instead of incremental steps. That kind of reset move shifts the conversation from "you're ignoring us" to "now react to this." There's also a public relations layer. When one side is seen as waiting and the other suddenly presents a large written offer, the narrative momentum can flip overnight. Fans stop asking why nothing is happening and start arguing about whether the proposal is fair. Attention moves from process to numbers, and numbers drive emotion. But here, where it gets more complicated, even though the silence is over and the proposal is in, reports say the two sides are still far apart on one core financial principle, which means the 6-week pause didn't end the fight. It just moved it to a more intense battlefield. Because once you see the salary figures being discussed, you understand why reactions have been so explosive and why expectations just got reset across the entire league. The moment details from the proposal started circulating, one number dominated every headline and debate clip: the projected new max salary range. According to multiple reports discussing the offer, the top-end salary structure could rise dramatically under the new agreement framework, with incentive-based and revenue-linked models potentially pushing star-level earnings past the $1 million mark. That figure alone changed the tone of the conversation overnight. For years, player salary ceilings in the league were one of the most criticized talking points among fans and commentators. So when reports suggested a possible leap several times higher than the previous max tier, reactions split into two immediate camps. One side called it a long overdue correction. The other called it aggressive and risk-loaded, depending on how the revenue formulas are written. And that second part matters, because analysts reviewing the proposal language say the headline number isn't a flat guarantee, it's tied to performance triggers and revenue-sharing mechanics. In simple terms, part of the raise is structured, part of it is earned through league growth. That design shifts some risk to the players and some to the league, which is exactly why negotiators use these hybrid models in fast growth phases. Still, perception drives momentum. And the perception right now is that ownership put real money on the table, not symbolic increases, but structural jumps. That's why so many commentators describe this offer as a pivot moment rather than a routine adjustment. There's also a competitive angle being discussed. Higher max salaries don't just affect superstars, they change contract ladders across entire rosters. When the ceiling rises, the middle tiers usually follow. That ripple effect is part of why this proposal is being described as transformational by some observers. But here's the twist: even with these eye-popping salary projections, the deal remains unsigned, which tells you something critical. The biggest fight isn't about the top-line number. It's about everything wrapped around it, especially the lifestyle and working condition demands that players have been pushing for over multiple bargaining cycles. And on that front, the proposal reportedly goes even further than the salary headlines suggest. While the salary headlines grabbed all the oxygen, several analysts say the most quietly significant parts of the proposal are actually buried in the non-salary sections: the lifestyle standards and player protections. According to multiple reports summarizing the offer, ownership didn't just adjust pay structure. They also outlined a wide set of quality-of-life upgrades players have been requesting for years. Travel is at the top of that list. Coverage of the proposal says expanded charter flight access and higher travel standards are written directly into the framework rather than treated as optional or temporary. That matters because players have repeatedly described travel strain as one of the biggest competitive and health disadvantages. Locking upgraded travel into the agreement, if finalized, would turn a long-running complaint into a guaranteed standard. Medical and family protections are another major piece. Negotiation summaries mention modernized pregnancy and maternity safeguards, including stronger language around player rights and team obligations. Analysts who follow sports labor deals note that these clauses are often harder to win than salary bumps because they change operational policy, not just budgets, which is why their inclusion is being described as a meaningful shift. There are also reported improvements tied to accommodations, recovery resources, and facility standards. Better hotels, better medical access, better support infrastructure, not flashy headline material, but daily impact material for players. So here's the obvious question: if the proposal includes major salary growth and long-requested lifestyle upgrades, why isn't the agreement already signed? Because, according to negotiation coverage, nearly all of these gains sit on one side of the ledger, while the unresolved fight sits on the other. And that fight centers on a single financial formula that neither side wants to concede. It's not about charter flights. It's not about hotel quality. It's about how revenue gets counted and who gets their percentage first. And that one accounting distinction may be the pressure point that decides whether the season starts on time or starts late. Here's the part insiders keep calling the true battleground: not the salaries, not the travel upgrades, not the benefits, but the revenue sharing formula. According to multiple negotiation reports, the biggest unresolved gap between the league and the Players Association comes down to one deceptively simple question. Do players get their percentage from gross revenue or net revenue? That sounds technical, but it changes everything. Gross revenue means the split is calculated from total incoming money before expenses. Net revenue means the split happens after league costs are paid, things like operations, staffing, marketing, travel, and infrastructure. Same pie, different slice timing. And depending on which model is used, the dollar difference over a multi-year agreement can be massive. Reports say the Players Association is pushing for a gross-based share model, arguing that it creates transparency and guarantees players benefit directly from league growth without accounting adjustments shrinking the pool. Ownership's reported position favors a net-based split model, which they argue is more sustainable and protects the league during uneven revenue years. Neither position is unusual in sports labor deals. Different leagues use different hybrids. What makes this tense is timing. Because the league is in a growth phase, projections vary widely. Optimistic forecasts make net sharing look attractive. Cautious forecasts make gross sharing feel safer. So both sides believe their model is the responsible one. Analysts describe this kind of dispute as philosophical as much as financial. It's about trust in future growth, trust in accounting transparency, and risk distribution. And when negotiations reach the philosophy layer, deals tend to slow down even when most other terms are agreed. What's important for viewers to understand is this. Reports indicate many secondary issues are closer to resolution than this one core formula. That's why you're seeing headlines that say big progress and still far apart at the same time. Both can be true. And while accountants and negotiators debate formulas, the calendar keeps moving, which is creating a second pressure wave that could hit just as hard as the financial one. Because the longer this remains unresolved, the more parts of the league calendar start freezing in place. While the revenue formula fight grabs the negotiation spotlight, a quieter but more urgent problem is building in the background. The league calendar is starting to lock up. And according to multiple reports, the longer this agreement stays unsigned, the more dominoes stop falling across the entire WNBA timeline. Expansion activity is one of the first pressure points. Coverage around the negotiations notes that key expansion processes tied to incoming markets, including draft mechanics and roster structuring, are difficult to finalize without a ratified agreement in place. New teams can't fully plan roster strategy if salary structure, cap rules, and contract models are still fluid. That creates hesitation, and hesitation costs momentum. Free agency is another area feeling the drag. Analysts point out that when CBA terms are unsettled, teams and players both wait. Contract values, exception rules, benefit terms, and incentive triggers might all change under a new deal. Signing early under old rules can be risky. Waiting under uncertainty is safer, but it freezes movement. For players, that uncertainty isn't abstract. It affects real income timing and career planning. Negotiation watchers note that off-season deals, sponsorship coordination, relocation planning, and training schedules all depend on contract clarity. When the framework is unknown, decisions get delayed. There's also a preparation clock that casual fans rarely see. League operations, training camp logistics, preseason scheduling, broadcast planning, venue coordination, all require lead time. You can't flip a switch and launch a season instantly. Even small delays at the agreement level compress everything downstream. Important to keep this measured. No official cancellation or delay has been announced. Right now, this is risk discussion, not outcome. But analysts who have covered past sports labor negotiations say timeline compression is often what forces final compromises, because eventually math beats leverage. And that's why strike and lockout talk, once dismissed as extreme, is now being discussed more openly in commentary circles. Not as a prediction, but as a scenario both sides are trying to avoid. Because if talks break down from here, the conversation shifts from numbers and formulas to to whether games get played at all. Now we need to talk about the scenario both sides publicly say they want to avoid, but analysts and commentators are increasingly modeling anyway: a strike or lockout situation. Not because it's confirmed, not because it's imminent, but because when a CBA dispute narrows to one unresolved core issue this close to the calendar window, contingency talk always ramps up. Let's keep this grounded and precise. There has been no official strike announcement and no lockout declaration. What we're seeing is scenario analysis, experts explaining what could happen if the revenue-sharing deadlock doesn't move. In a player strike scenario, players withhold participation to pressure ownership into changing terms. In a lockout scenario, ownership prevents league activity until an agreement is reached. Different mechanisms, same result. Games don't happen on schedule. That's why even the possibility gets attention. Sports labor historians point out a consistent pattern: the closer a league is to a visible growth surge, the more intense the final bargaining stage becomes. Each side believes the future value is about to rise, which makes percentage splits more important than ever. That can harden positions right when compromise is needed most. There's also a risk-balance reality being discussed in expert panels. Owners typically have deeper financial reserves to withstand a missed window. Players, especially those not at the very top salary tier, often feel missed games more directly. That imbalance is one reason most modern CBAs eventually settle. Pressure lands unevenly. At the same time, player associations aren't just negotiating for today, they're negotiating for future members. That's why union leadership often holds firm on structural formulas instead of focusing only on immediate gains. It's long-horizon bargaining versus short-window urgency. Public reaction adds another layer. Commentary shows that many fans focus on visible outcomes, salaries, travel, benefits, while negotiators focus on underlying math. That perception gap can create PR swings during tense phases, with each side trying to frame the narrative. Which is exactly why another theory has entered the conversation: the idea that if talks drag too long, some players might look at alternative leagues as temporary or supplemental options. And that theory sounds simple on the surface, but analysts say the reality underneath it is far more complicated. As the negotiation tension rises, another idea keeps surfacing in talk shows and fan debates: the so-called backup plan theory. You've probably heard it already. If the agreement stalls, players could just shift to alternative women's basketball leagues and keep earning while the standoff plays out. It sounds clean. It sounds easy. But analysts say the real picture is far more complicated. Several commentators mention newer and smaller format leagues as partial options, but they're quick to add important context. Most of these leagues have limited roster spots, shorter seasons, and smaller revenue pools. They're not built, at least right now, to absorb the full volume of top-tier professional players at once. That's not criticism, it's scale math. There's also the exposure factor. Media analysts point out that national broadcast reach, sponsor infrastructure, and long-term brand visibility are still concentrated in the main league structure. Playing elsewhere might provide short-term run, but it doesn't automatically replace the same platform value. For star players, visibility is currency. For role players, stability is currency. Alternate leagues don't yet replicate both at full scale. Financial structure is another constraint. Startup or specialty format leagues often operate on different business models: shorter contracts, appearance-based pay, or tournament-style compensation. That works for some athletes, but not as a universal substitute for a full-season salary framework tied to benefits and protections. Important clarification: none of this means alternate leagues are irrelevant or unimportant. Many analysts actually say they're healthy for the ecosystem and create leverage and innovation. But using them as a full fallback for an entire player population during a labor standoff is, according to most experts, unrealistic in the short term. What this really means is leverage remains centered where the main platform sits. That keeps the pressure on both negotiating sides to find a resolution rather than rely on escape routes. And that brings us to the endgame tension Because now this isn't just a negotiation story anymore. It's a decision moment story. One where public perception, calendar pressure, and financial structure are all colliding at once. Which leads to the final question, who blinks first, and what happens to the season if neither side does? Everything now comes down to a decision window, not a discussion window. The silence phase is over. The proposal is on the table. The major terms are visible. And according to multiple reports, the gap has narrowed to one central financial structure issue that neither side wants to concede easily. From the outside, it looks like huge progress. Reported max salary jumps, travel standards upgrades, medical and maternity protections, facility and accommodation improvements. Those are not minor adjustments, they're structural shifts. But negotiations aren't decided by how big the visible gains are. They're decided by how both sides evaluate the long-term math underneath them. Ownership appears to be signaling growth sharing with cost protection. Union leadership appears to be signaling guaranteed percentage security with accounting clarity. Both positions are rational from their own side of the table. The conflict exists because risk is being measured differently. The calendar, however, doesn't measure philosophy, it measures days. Expansion planning is waiting, contract movement is waiting, operational logistics are waiting, fans are watching, broadcasters are watching, sponsors are watching. And history shows that when sports labor deals reach this stage, perception pressure becomes almost as powerful as financial pressure. Important to keep this grounded and fair. There is no confirmed strike, no confirmed lockout, and no confirmed season delay. What exists right now is a high-stakes negotiation at its most fragile stage, where breakthrough and breakdown are both still possible. This is the moment where legacy decisions get made, not just about this season, but about the economic model that will shape the next era of the league. So here's the question I want you to think about carefully. If you're in that room, do you lock in the major gains now and keep momentum rolling? Or do you hold the line for a stronger revenue formula, even if the clock gets uncomfortable? Because whichever path gets chosen next won't just settle a contract, it will shape the direction of the league for years to come.